Good day, Jamaica. Terry Beckford here. Just want to discuss the stagnant nature of Jamaican politics and how our parliament lacks adequate political diversity. So when you look at parliament, you tend to see the same old politicians that we've become so familiar with. Then some of these senior politicians tend to take in their children into politics and even their wives and other family members. And these newcomers tend to carry on the same old corrupt politics. Nothing really changed. And then you have a few of them who are new additions to parliament, who are usually persons who are loyal to one of the two political parties and was given a constituency, in the election. And many of these new faces are simply unwilling or unable to make a difference because the party politics tend to corrupt them. And by the time they reach in parliament, they don't really have no intention or no freedom to make a difference for the people. So, although you see new faces, tend to be the same old political mentality and the same culture of corruption. It's just nepotism and cronyism. And that's why they tend to have the same approach, the same ideology, the same way of doing things. Everybody in parliament is just carbon copy. And that's why regardless of which party is in power, you will always see the government selling out critical infrastructure to the Chinese, like our harbour. And decisions like these cannot benefit the nation in any way possible, no care how you look at it. So it's clear that Jamaica is not being governed by the best leaders the country has to offer. People with the ability to govern responsibly are stepping forward, but many of these people don't want to join the PNP or the JLP. So how do we change this as a people? Usually we vote them out. But because of the nature of political campaigns in Jamaica, we haven't seen the diversity in political candidates stepping forward to represent the people. And when they do, they are shunned or sidelined or they do not have enough capital to fund their campaigns. So how do we solve this problem? Because we know that Jamaica have the potential to put forward great leaders that can govern the affairs of the country better than how it is being governed now. So how do we set up a system whereby it is more accessible for new politicians? That is where the media-based campaign model comes in. The media-based campaign model is a system whereby the media plays a role in structuring and broadcasting campaigns. It is very cost effective. It allows new politicians that are not connected to the system to enter politics more conveniently. And it structures the way in which we administer political campaigns for the best interests of the people. So now, in order to explain what the media-based campaign model is, I'm going to use an example of the Westmoreland Central constituency. So let's say we have a candidate from the PNP, the JLP, the NDM, the UIC, and an independent candidate running in that constituency. Alright, so we would have TVJ and CVM interview each of these candidates separately so that the people within the constituency and the wider Jamaica can see these candidates, hear what they're about, hear their plans, and know what are the options when going into the election. So you don't have to just hear about the PNP and the JLP candidates. You'll hear about all of the candidates and you'll see them in the mainstream media. So the media would have an obligation to actually broadcast all the candidates that are running for a particular office. So the next step in the media-based campaign model is for the candidates to outline their platform in the newspaper. So after all of the candidates are given, exposure on TVJ and CVM, they then go to the newspapers and structure their plans for the constituency. And they would submit it to the newspapers, and the newspapers would circulate these plans to the people so that the people can know what these people have in plan, all of their policies, so that they can know the best candidate and vote for them accordingly. Then after they outline their plans in the newspaper, the next step would be to go on different radio stations and talk about the plans that they have and take questions from callers who have concerns about their plans or who have questions that they want answered by these candidates. So the radio stations would be encouraged to facilitate all of these candidates equally so they can get equal exposure. The objective here is equal exposure in the media by all candidates, whether the PNP or JLP, NDM, UIC, or independent candidates. Then the next stage in the media-based campaign model is to set up a stage in about three different parts of the constituency, the three most populated parts of the constituency. You'd just set up a stage one night and you'd invite the candidates to speak directly to the people, and the people would come, listen to them, and have a Q&A session where the people ask questions from a mic, and the candidates would answer these questions. And with all of these forms of exposure, it would be adequate enough to suffice for a media an election campaign. And as you can see, all of it is basically administered by the media, and it doesn't cost very much. So new candidates who don't have any money to put in politics can still step forward, and they will still get equal exposure to the PNP and JLP candidates. So you don't have to waste millions of dollars buying votes and exposing yourself and wasting all that money. And this system makes it very accessible for new people to come into politics and to get the exposure that is necessary for them to win elections and to break the political monopoly so that we can have more ideas, more ways of doing things, more parties that are well represented in the media and that are represented by the voters, because we need more political competitiveness in Jamaica. And politics is basically power going between the PNP and the JLP, and they have become very accustomed to power, and so they do nothing because they know that power will only go between one or two of the parties. So we have to change things, and this is a system that opens up politics to new representation to people who once couldn't afford it. And one of the things that is achieved is that those with the capital do not control who become politicians. So the benefits of this system are, number one, politicians don't have to depend on campaign funding in order to run an election. Traditionally, in order to become a politician, you'd have to source income or source campaign funding from many sources, including the rich or the established people who many times want something in return. So many times when people are starting out in politics, they are already compromised because of their dependence on campaign funding and to get money from the rich. And we know traditionally that is a way that rich people use to control the government, or those with money who want the government to operate at their benefit. So this system eliminates that because none of the candidates require any form of campaign funding. And in fact, with this system being implemented, we can make campaign fundings illegal. So we have less basis on which to compromise politicians and less room for political corruption. So this will put an end to the wasteful nature of political campaigns and won't waste millions of dollars just to actually elect a new leader. The media can play an active role in structuring and broadcasting political campaigns in a manner that will make people focus more on issues. So the second point is the issues-based nature of this type of campaign system, which require people to outline what they're going to do for the constituency, deal with questions and concerns directly from the citizens, and to force people to vote on ideas rather than party colors. The third benefit of this system is that it forces the media to focus on different politicians other than two-party. During election season, we see the media mostly focus on the PNP and the JLP, while barely if any at all focusing on the third party or independent candidates. And this directly affects the election results. So we cannot move past the two-party system if the media keep on prioritizing them over other candidates. They have to be equally focused on. The developments of the third party and independent candidates should be tracked and monitored by the media, and we rarely hear nothing about them. We mostly hear about Mr. Rohan Chung, and not in the context of serious politics because he's portrayed in the media as this joke, and I don't think he really mind. So they don't have a problem focusing on this individual because he doesn't let the alternative to the PNP and the JLP look good. He let people think that if you're not in the PNP and the JLP, you're not supposed to be taken seriously. And that is not the message I want the media to be sending about third parties and independent candidates, because that is not true. They are very capable people who do not want to join the PNP and the JLP, but want to represent the people and can represent the people and administer and govern this country better than the current leaders. And if we don't get equal representation in the media, then regardless of what we do, the people are going to simply be less inclined to vote for us unless the media facilitate the necessary equality as this system outlines. So the third point is this system facilitates less room for politically motivated acts of violence. Because it's a media-based campaign and it's mostly interaction with the politicians through structured mediums. You won't have the bashment type politics and the bashment motorcade with excitement and so on. You will have people more discussing ideas and will have less room for politically motivated acts of violence. And with that, we'll see less unnecessary bloodshed be shed amongst poor people because it's only poor people die during election time. And election politics don't really benefit poor people. So I don't see why poor people from one party are going to target poor people from another party. And this system helps to eliminate that mentality. So the fourth point is that it will force candidates to actually show a substantial meaning towards the job that they are applying for, instead of just generating popularity, because a lot of these candidates, they can generate a lot of popularity, but they don't really have the capability to do the job. And we see a lot of them in parliament, that's why we don't see any change, because they are in there because of loyalty to the party and not necessarily the capability to administer the affairs of the constituency. So when we put these people up on the podium now and demand that they answer questions from the people will be able to discern whether or not these people are capable of serving. So we'll make sure that our democracy does not become a popularity contest, but a contest between the capable leaders, the potential of the leaders. And that is what we want. And the media-based campaign model achieves that. So we're going to discuss 3 conditionalities that come with the media-based campaign model. So these 3 factors are a ban on campaign finance, as we previously discussed, the use of campaign contracts, and the introduction of mandatory town hall meetings. So the first one, the ban on campaign donations, consists of politicians being required to not take any form of donations when entering into a campaign, because it's simply not necessary in this type of system where they get all the media exposure and a completely free means by which to appeal to the voters, which is enough for them to communicate their plans for government. So by banning campaign donations, we'll cut the age-old method of others corrupting politics and getting politicians to do what they want. And it will be also easier to pinpoint corruption when we have this in place, because we all know that campaign donations has long been one of the many windows by which corruption operates. So this will make democratic vote equal, and the rich won't have more power in determining the persons who represent us, no more than the poor. So the second condition is campaign contracts. These are contracts between a person, a candidate seeking to represent a constituency, and the members of the constituency. So one of the problems we have with politics is that many of these politicians, they come and they make promises, and after they win the election, they do not hear from them. They do not fulfill these promises. So one of the important things to empower the people is to force these politicians to introduce and to sign legally binding contracts with the members of the constituents, so that if they promise to fix the road, to fix a drain, to run water into the community, they can sign a contract that is legally binding. And after they win, the contract is enforceable and the people can get the results that they demand, so that they can stop trick the people, and that part of democracy can be put to an end. Because too many times democratic politicians promise the people, lie to the people, and the people have no means by which to force them to perform. So let's use the principle of specific performance in contract to force these politicians to do what they promise the people. So this is a very important development, not only in Jamaican politics, but in democracy overall. And I want you to take notice of the importance of the media-based campaign model, the model that I'm introducing. It is very important to the development of the country politically. So the third conditionality is town hall meetings. We need politicians to be attending town hall meetings so that they can speak to the constituency, speak to the voters who voted them in. As we said, many times the politicians after winning, you do not see them back until the next election. So we need to introduce into the constitution the requirement that politicians attend 4 town hall meetings every 3 months for the year. So the people have to see their representative at least 4 times per the year, so they can pose questions and concerns to them about the governance of the constituency. And this will clearly improve the governance of the country and the quality of our democracy, because people will be able to hold their representatives accountable. And if the representatives miss these town hall meetings, then they can be penalized. So we need to introduce penalization for persons who miss town hall meetings, because this initiative will allow the people to keep these people accountable, to get them to perform. And this is what we require in Jamaica, so that we can see Jamaica improve, because Jamaica is so badly governed. It's one of the worst governed countries in the Western world. So these measures should be implemented in Jamaica, and other countries naturally will eventually adopt these measures. But they are necessary to force the Jamaican government to perform in the interest of the people. So I want you guys who are inspired by these ideas to like the video, to share the video, and to subscribe to my channel. One love, Jamaica.